So the rumors have been confirmed. Manny Pacquiao at the age of 46 is making a comeback to challenge Mario Barrios for his WBC World Welterweight title. Guys, I don't know how to feel about this. I mean, Pacquiao is one of my all-time favorite boxers. He's incredible. He's a legend. And there's always that glimmer of hope inside you that this is going to be an epic comeback. But the reality is, he could be set for huge disaster. In this video, I'm going to get into all the details of Manny's comeback, try and figure out why he's doing it, how it's been allowed to happen, does he have any chance of actually beating Barrios, all before giving you my verdict on whether or not I think the fight should happen. Hello everyone, and welcome back to A Guy Called Henry. Oh man. Oh, this is a difficult topic, because it's so hard to talk about something that you wish could happen, and is happening, but you also deep down know more than likely is going to end in a bad way. This is one of the most emotionally torn I've actually been before doing a video, because I'm genuinely a giant Pacquiao fan. Like, I love this guy. I think watching him fight was one of the reasons I became a boxing fan in the first place. And everything about the way he boxes, the style, the attitude, the humble character was just everything you love as a boxing fan. The incredible training clips we used to see with Freddie Roach, putting himself through the mill, the hand speed, the foot speed, the massive calves. Like, everybody who has come into touch with Pacquiao at some point absolutely loves the guy, and he's just incredible. If you're a boxing fan, Pacquiao is the dream as a boxing fan in terms of what you want to see from a fighter. You know, 8-division world champion. It's absolutely mental. This dude has achieved so much, so much. He's not just like a, you know, a kind of, I hark back sometimes to like Kell Brook, for example, and I really enjoyed Kell Brook's career when I was watching it, but Manny Pacquiao, this is like, probably no one will ever do what he's done again. So he's already got this incredible legacy in the sport, and I think it's really important that we talk about this comeback, because we have to be honest about what's happening here. We have to be realistic about what's happening here, and I'm going to try and do that for you in this video. Before I really get into this, guys, please bang a like on this video if indeed you do like it. Get your comments in the comments section below. Do you want to see Pacquiao back in the ring? Do you think he can win against Barrios? And also, please subscribe to the channel if you're new, or if you've been watching for a while and haven't done so yet. Also, very quick plug, guys. If you are running a business, or you're head of a marketing team, and you want to enhance your social content, your video production, your website videos, whatever it is you need, head over to my website. The link is in the description, and we can have a chat about what I could potentially do for you. We can have a look at seeing how we could work together. I'm sponsoring my own channel at the minute, so yeah. And the other thing is memberships. Trying to get to 2,000 members. We're currently on about 30. It's £2 a month. You get a few perks, and the idea is to make this a community-funded channel. So please get at that. The link will also be in the description. Now, I think to begin, we need to set the scene. We need to understand what is the context of Pacquiao's return. For those of you that haven't been following us closely for the last little period, not too sure what the story is with Pacquiao, because obviously, you know, he was involved in some gigantic events. And so you sort of think, well, the last I heard of him, if you're a casual fan, was probably the Floyd Mayweather fight, or maybe the Keith Thurman fight, and he was still winning when I last heard of him. So, you know, all cool. He's probably still the same guy, right? Well, you'd be wrong. Pacquiao lost his last fight 6 years ago against a fighter called Ugas. And Ugas, whilst a decent operator, is somebody that in Pacquiao's prime, he would have absolutely destroyed. I have absolute confidence in saying that. And I mean, indeed, Ugas, whilst a good operator, definitely not as good as Keith Thurman as well, in my opinion, who Pacquiao had just beaten a couple of years before. And it was a strange period for Pacquiao. You know, he got that Thurman win, and then I think it might have been management issues that he was having. But he had a couple of years where he wasn't active again, even after beating Thurman, which was a really impressive win, by the way. I was convinced Keith Thurman would win that fight, with Manny being the age he was at the time, what he had, I perceived he had left in the tank. I was convinced Thurman would win that fight, and as much as, you know, anything, I just rated Keith Thurman, but Manny got the win there. But as I say, a couple of years later, he comes back, or continues his career, and he loses against Ugas, and he didn't look good in that fight. You know, the speed wasn't the same, the reflexes weren't the same, and it just wasn't the same Manny Pacquiao. And this is something that we need to understand in this video, is that boxing, yes, is a skillful sport, it's a technical sport, but a lot of times guys are champions, and guys are at the level they're at because of athleticism, because of explosiveness, because of just the physical attributes that they have. And of course, there's boxing skill involved in that, but you get some guys that are super technical and not as physical, and you get some guys that are maybe like pretty technical, or the technique they've got fits being athletic. And with Manny, that's what I would describe him as. Somebody who had amazing athleticism, amazing speed, and his style was built around how he used that, how he utilized that. And it was why he was able to go up through so many weight divisions. Did a lot of stuff that technically is questionable. And honestly, it only really works if you're super explosive, and it will get you into trouble if you're not. Lots of lunging, you know, the size he was as well, being up at welter, the guys were always bigger than him. So it was harder for him to close the gap. He needed that extra, you know, spring in his step. And something that does concern me about Manny is how he looked in the last time we saw him in the ring, which was an exhibition fight last year against Rukia Ampo, who was a kickboxer. And he had this boxing match with him. I think it was over 6 rounds. And It was, I hated it. I hated watching it. And I got quite a bit of criticism for it in my reaction video. People were like, oh, he was just getting warmed up. He was just getting going. He didn't look that bad. I thought, compared with the Pacquiao that I've seen, he looked dreadful. I will say that he looked good for his age. He's 45 in there at the time, I believe. He's going to be 40. He's 46 right now if he returns. So he'd have been around 45 at the time of that fight. Now, I just want to say, like, he's an elite 45-year-old. He's about as good as you could expect someone to be at 45 years old, especially in the lower weights where typically you don't age quite as well. Because in the lower weights, it's all about, speed and punch output and that sort of thing normally. Whereas in the higher weights, you can end a fight with a single shot. So, yeah, that fight against Ampo, I hated it. I didn't enjoy watching it. Seeing this guy who was a kickboxer doing well against Manny, or relatively well against Manny, a guy that, Manny would have absolutely just destroyed in his prime. There would have been a no contest. It wouldn't have been worth even speaking of. And yet here they are having a fairly competitive scrap in the ring. I hated it. And that troubles me, that really troubles me, that performance. And there is a massive, massive difference between a Rukia Ampo and a Mario Barrios. Just gigantic. They're worlds apart. So this return for Pacquiao, to give it its full context, he's 46 years old. He hasn't won a fight in 6 years. And the guy he's returning against has only lost 2 fights to 2 elite-level operators in Keith Thurman and Gervonta Davis. Now, Gervonta, of course, is a smaller fighter, but he's still very, very good. He's one of the best in the world in that weight division. And to further the context, Barrios has also beaten Ugas, who was the last man that Pacquiao lost against when he retired from the boxing, all those years back. So I guess the question is, with all these odds stacked against Manny, and with the career he's already had, with the ridiculous fortune he's already amassed, why is this happening? How is this happening that he could come back at this age, having lost his last fight, having been inactive for so long, and get a straight shot at the WBC World Champion at welterweight? It doesn't really sound like it should happen, right? Well, we're in the boxing game. So the first place we should go is the WBC because, man, these guys, there's a reason people jokingly call them WBC We Be Crooks. And I just find them hilarious as an organization. They're an absolute farce. They're a farcical organization. Recently, we've spoken quite a bit about TKO Boxing, this new promotion from Dana White and Turki Al-Sheikh. And people have been sort of saying, it's not right that they would come in and try and oust the existing establishment. You can't just neglect the WBC, the WBO, the WBA, the IBF. You can't just chuck them all to the side. They've got to still work with them. People are going to want to hold these belts held by these great champions in the past from these organizations. But it's crap like this. It's stuff like this where these organizations, especially the WBC, are bad for this. They just take absolute liberties. And actually, I view this new organization that's coming in as their comeuppance. I really do. And whether or not it's able to oust them, whether or not it's actually good in its own right, it might be just as bad as them. But just the concept, the idea of one governing body coming in and eradicating all of them, it would be just reward, in my opinion, for the way that they have run their organizations over the years. I have absolutely no problem saying that. Because at the end of the day, they've all had opportunities to be run correctly, to do things in the right way, to set high standards, to protect fighters, to make the best matchups available, to enforce mandatories. They're just the epitome of a money-grabbing organization, a money-grabbing company that do not give a damn about anything except for their bottom line. All they care about is how much profit they can generate. And that is the bottom line. That is what it comes down to with regards to the way an organization like that is run. They do not care about the integrity of the sport. If they did, there's no way they would sanction this fight for the WBC world title. Now, the rule that they've quoted, it was in an article somewhere that I read, the rule that they have quoted saying that they're allowed to do this is that they have a rule basically which allows former champions to request a title shot upon their return. Now, you may remember that when Pacquiao was a welterweight, Mayweather was the one who had the WBC title for pretty much the entire period that Manny was a welterweight. I think Manny fought for the diamond belt against Cotto, and obviously that's not the proper WBC world title. It's the diamond belt, whatever the hell the diamond belt was. I don't think we ever really found out. Again, another thing that's irritating about these bodies, they have all these weird belts and, super champions and regular champions and all this crap. But the last time Manny Pacquiao actually held a WBC world title, a proper one, was in 2010 when he won a 154-pound WBC world title against Antonio Margarito. So this guy has not been a WBC world champion for around 15 years. Okay, put that into context. I don't know how long he held that 54 title for. 15 years ago, was the last time that he actually held a version of the WBC title. And so, it's ridiculous. And if you go and look at the WBC rulebook, it essentially is written in a way that means they can do whatever they want. There are no rules. They might as well not even have a rulebook. It's just to say, oh, look, these are the rules. But in reality, there are none because they can override most of the things that are written in that book with a couple of, clauses or stipulations that basically say, yeah, that's cool, but actually we can do what we want at the end of the day. And the reason I'm getting so frustrated is because it's just this kind of crap that just undermines the credibility of the sport. It undermines the credibility of boxing and just being a world champion in general. I mean, Barrios didn't even win his WBC belt in the ring. He was elevated to champion. And I just find it incredibly frustrating, especially because the WBC belt, the green and gold belt, everybody wants that one. It's the most prestigious strap. It's a beautiful looking belt. And I'm just irritated by the fact that they are just like, yeah, cool, you can do that. And at the end of the day, you know, Manny Pacquiao is still one of the biggest names in world boxing. And what I think it speaks to is a lack of big names in the sport right now. Because rest assured, you know, Pacquiao doesn't get a straight shot if there's two names that are as big as him already in place to fight for this title. And the issue we have is that we don't have enough big names in the sport right now. I really believe that. Pacquiao was a gigantic name, and we don't have anybody of that scale anymore. We really don't. And there's a couple of people who maybe come close, Canelo, for example, but the other problem that you have in boxing is these names are only big when they reach the end of their careers, which is when you need to start really thinking about whether or not they should be getting shots, because they've probably lost a few fights at that point. They're probably not the same fighter anymore. Health becomes an issue in terms of whether or not they're going to get injured in the fight. Yeah, they're too far gone to be fighting at that level. They can skip stages. You don't even have to test yourself to see, you know, if they should be at that stage because of what they've done previously. And even though, you know, he lost and it was like, okay, it's very clear that he's not what he was anymore, he can come back. And the assumption is this is still Manny Pacquiao, but if anything, he's going to be worse than when we last saw him. He's almost certainly going to be worse than when we last saw him against Ugas when he lost 6 years ago. Or 4 years ago, sorry, I should say. 6 years ago was the last time he won a fight. But to give the bout some, not credibility or credit, but to understand, you know, the interest that will undoubtedly be there, it's because people will always want to watch Manny Pacquiao fight unless we see something really sad and really shocking. And I think part of it is because I think people really struggle with the concept of aging. And we saw this with the Mike Tyson against Jake Paul fight. People before the fight simply could not fathom Jake Paul could potentially beat Mike Tyson in that fight, that Mike Tyson wasn't the same man anymore. And I think it's because we're all afraid of aging. We're all afraid that, well, you know, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, we won't be who we are today. Physically, we won't be able to do what we do anymore. And it's facing that reality when you see someone who you loved like Pacquiao and they're not the same guy anymore, or Mike Tyson, and he's half the man he used to be in the ring, probably triple the man he used to be outside the ring. He's obviously changed a lot, but inside the ring, there's, you know, because in society we hold physicality in such high regard still, and as we should, you know, it's an important thing, but it's very hard for us to let go. It's very hard for us to accept that we've changed as people, and we're going to change as people. We're going to lose what we've got physically. It's just going to happen. You can reduce it. You can still be in fantastic shape for your age, but ultimately, when you're 50, you're never going to be what you were when you were 25, 30. It's just a reality of life. And this is something we all struggle to accept. So I really believe there's a big psychological component when these big champions from the past come back. People are desperate for them to be able to do what they used to because they look at themselves in them. They're like, if they could do it, I can do it, you know? So I think there's that. But also, there's the element of it could be legendary, even though it almost certainly won't be. And there's every chance that it can't be. And it's actually very dangerous, probably. There's also that that tiny slither of belief that something incredible could happen, something legendary and powerful and legacy-changing could happen. And that is why people have intrigue in fights like this. You can't really do it more than once. I mean, Mike Tyson seems to be able to do it multiple times, but enough time passes, and because you still remember them as what they were in their prime, you kind of forget almost what happened. And even though Pacquiao's lost, he's then had a really, I mean, for Pacquiao, it was a terrible performance against a kickboxer. We just can't seem to remember that for some reason. I mean, I can, but a lot of people will look at it and go, it's still Manny Pacquiao. I still want to see him fight. So basically what this comes down to is money and the fact there's a giant carrot being dangled in this incredible legacy win. If Pacquiao at 46 can come back, he's already got the record as the oldest welterweight champion or champion from 147 down in the history of the sport at 40 years old. If he can do it at 46, break his own record, he'd only be a few years younger than Hopkins was when he was middleweight champ. It's not the same. It's not comparable because of the context. Hopkins was active. Hopkins was a very different kind of fighter. And also, when you go up the weights, as I said earlier, it's much easier to still go when you're a bit older because you still have that punch power, that ability to put someone's lights out. It's, as I say, it's obviously very much about skill and technique, but in the lighter weights, it's even more prevalent. The fact that it's about skill and technique and punch output. So finally, I'm going to tell you my verdicts and how I feel about this. And I'm going to tell you this. I don't want this fight to happen one bit. I don't think it should happen. I think it's wrong. The number one thing for me is Manny's health. I don't want to see Manny Pacquiao get hurt in the ring. I don't want to see his life changed by one bout when he's already come through incredible hardship, an incredible career. He's been in absolute wars. And I don't want to see this guy end up in a bad way. And it will look so bad on the sport if he does. It'll be terrible if he does. The guy he's going in there with Barrios, he's not a bad fighter. He's no joke. He's not anywhere near what Manny was in his prime. He's definitely not going to go down as a great welterweight champion, but he's decent. He's a decent champion. The other reason I don't want this to happen is the idea of the fact, is the reality of the fact that all people care about in this sport is money. Money, money, money. And the fact that that's the case is that they don't care about Pacquiao's health. I was raging about the Eubank Ben situation. You know, I hated the fact there was a rehydration clause. I hated the fact that they were like, oh, this fight's competitive. That we nailed it because the fight was competitive. It was competitive because you made someone closer to death. That's the reality of the situation. You reduce their ability to be hydrated. It's not just about performance. It's about how the punches impact you that you take. It's about the health of the person. To say, we're going to reduce the health of this person so that the other person has a chance is terrifying to me. And the WBC will not give two Fs about Manny Pacquiao's health. They don't care if Manny Pacquiao gets hurt in the ring. They really don't. Other than for their reputation, that's all they give a damn about. So the WBC will get to make their money. And speaking of money, I'm sure that's the reason that Manny's doing this, okay? And there's lots of rumors when you go on the internet. He's had legal issues. He's had big tax bills from after his career. He's obviously had political campaigns that he's run, which cost a lot of money. And I meant to mention this in the previous section, but money will be the motivator for Pacquiao here. He knows he's got nothing left to achieve in the sport. There may also be an element of, you know, these fighters, they just can't let the sport go. They really struggle to let it go. You know, you remember in Rocky Balboa when he's talking about having the stuff in the basement. There's still stuff in the basement. I still need to fight. Maybe that's still there for Manny. Maybe it is. But I really think that the actual issue here is money. So I don't want this because I'm worried about what will happen to Manny health-wise. I don't want this because I hate the fact it's just 100% about money. And at least in boxing, we get these moments where these champions come through and they're just there on merit and skill and ability, like Usyk. That's why one of the reasons I love Usyk so much. He's never been the money to win. You know, no one has ever said, oh, if Usyk wins, he's worth the most money. That's never been the case. He's won because he's the best. And that's what I really care about, is who's the best. That's what I really want to find out. Who's the best boxer? Who's the best fighter? And ultimately, I'll say this. Manny can do whatever he wants. He can do whatever he wants, and as he should. If the sanctioning bodies allow it, if Manny wants to do it, then absolutely no problem. I will accept that he wants to do it. And I'll probably cover it. In fact, I definitely will cover it. Because at the end of the day, I'm a boxing fan, and it's for a world title. Be damn sure that I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm seeing. I'm not going to mince my words, and I will give you my honest truth about what I see in that fight, in that matchup. If Manny shocks me, if Manny comes back and somehow wins that fight, I will be absolutely startled and in awe and just completely surprised and just overwhelmed by the ability of the man. It will be an incredible thing if he's able to do it. And that is why there is a little sliver of intrigue, even for me. Even I can't deny that intrigue is there, that, God, what if he can do it? What if he can do it? But you have to resist that thinking, because at the end of the day, this is a 46-year-old man who lost his last fight against a guy that the guy he's going to fight beat. So yeah, I'm going to cover it. A small part of me secretly wants to see it, but also I know, and I'm for sure know that this is a terrible, terrible fight to make, and they shouldn't make it. But guys, let me know what you think about this fight in the comments section below. Please bang a like on this video if you've liked it. Please subscribe to the channel. Very close to 10K subs now, so I'd appreciate your subscription if you're new. And as I always say, on to the next one.